Hey everybody, I wanted to talk about Disney and the parks around Orlando during COVID, and this is as of fall 2020, so September, October, November timeframe. I just went down to Disney and Universal and SeaWorld in Orlando and had a great experience. There were quite a few people, and I will say that Disney was very safe. You had a lot of enforcement of wearing masks. The employees would actually yell at you if you didn't have your mask on, which included sitting and taking pictures and removing your mask, or standing and having your mask removed, even if you're outside of the 6 foot radius of people around you. They would get at you. You could sit and eat and drink, or stand and eat and drink, as long as you were resting or in a designated rest area, or even outside in the park, just as long as you were stationary, but you couldn't take your mask off. And they would literally yell at you. So Disney has its own zip code, and they have different rules. So if you go to a truck stop in, say, Southern Maryland, you're going to get uh, you're going to get a different reaction. People are not going to enforce the mask rule, and that includes employees. And so you'll have signs, but then people won't wear the masks and will be walking around. So you need to factor that in. So Disney did a good job. They had a lot of the rides open, a couple of different things such as meeting and greeting with characters. Those weren't open. The new Star Wars ride at Galaxy's Edge was open. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go on that because they had a queuing system and we were waitlisted. Also, the app was really buggy. So this is recently, the last couple weeks. But I was able to go on the Millennium Falcon ride, and I went on Star Tours a bunch of times. And by the way, there are 90 different scenes in that ride. That's what an employee told me. So even though it's an old ride, it's a goodie. It's a really good ride. So also, we went to Universal, a little bit less safe, went to 2 parks. I didn't do any water parks. The water parks had especially curtailed hours. All the major parks down there had curtailed hours. So you had to figure out the best time to get in. Disney would take you in a queuing system for the park, so you would essentially put in a request to visit a park that you had a ticket for, and they weren't doing park hoppers, unfortunately. So as long as you were in the system, you were able to go into the park that day. Universal, you just came into the park whenever it was open. So we tried to go later in the day one day, and it was maxed out. So we weren't able to go, and we went to SeaWorld instead. SeaWorld, it was pretty easy to get into, and we were able to get a really good deal. SeaWorld was not safe with social distancing. It was really cool, and I'm really happy to see what they're doing to the animals and the environmental focus, but it was not well groomed for COVID. So they had rules in place, employees would tell you, but then people were blatantly ignoring them, and a lot of the sanitizer was out. But other than that, it was a fun park, and we were careful. The family had masks, we had extra masks, we had our own sanitizer, and the sanitizing stations at Whirlpool were really strong. But going back to Universal, they had several different new rides that were really, really neat. And we just went around the 2 parks, and the 2 main parks at Universal. I really like Volcano Bay, but because of water and whatnot, and being closer than you'd like to people, and transmission probably being a little easier with water, we didn't go. But overall, it was really neat. I'd say the worst experience that we had was just trying to stay away from people in Magic Kingdom. It was really, really busy. Also, we saw a straight up adult fight at the Jungle Cruise ride at Magic Kingdom, and it was 2 adults. One had kids, the other one didn't. He was with his girlfriend, and he just went at this dad, and it was really, honestly, it was really alarming. People were horrified, and you can kind of tell that people are stressed out because of what's going on. But overall, it wasn't really something that I would prefer going down there with COVID, but it definitely was worth going to Disney. It always is, but it was still a lot of fun. we had a really good time. And Hollywood, they actually had, other than going to Galaxy's Edge for the first time, they had Mickey's Railroad Ride. That was pretty neat. And they really made that kind of like a cartoon, so I enjoyed that. But overall, definitely recommend you take a look at going. If you want to take kids, just be careful and make sure that they don't take their mask off. Little kids tend to want to pull the mask down, especially if they're under the age of 5. And also, if your child is 3 or older, you have to pay for them. Anything younger than that, they're free. And that goes for Universal, Disney, and I think all the other parks. So definitely take a look at going. A lot of the resorts were spaced out on the weekends. They became more busy, but we stayed out in town in Kissimmee, so we didn't actually stay in a Disney resort. But a lot of the units that were next to us were empty, so we just made sure that we maintained distance in the weekends. And then when you're at the pool, you got to make sure that people don't just walk over and get really close to you. So that's the biggest thing. But anyway, feel free to like and subscribe. I want to post some more content on Disney and parks and whatnot because I really enjoy doing it. So does my family. But thanks for listening.